The Black Fundraisers podcast. This lock right here. What up, Kia? CH at lock 121. Get the check out like a physical. We get the checks in the Cheerios. Counting like chocolate cereal. We need the fun and residual. We get the money and flip it, cause we gotta get it. We talking finances, funding and grant biz. Getting and making advances, taking chances with the hot topics. Racism, politics, non-profits. Kia Kroon, she gon' drop knowledge. Whatever you want, the pod got it. Get your facts right. Deep dive and get baptized. Black business, black life, black money, black power, black pride. And the POCs tryna see those fees like a casino. Sitting on TOP, we just spitting our POV. We gon' ride till we don't eat. We pushing the pedal, we over the limit. We never gon' settle, we been with the business. Every episode is gon' be the realest. Every week you gotta pay us a visit. Come on and hang, hot as a flame. Hating is lame, taking the aim. Changing the game, stay in our lane. Breaking the chain, making it rain. Making it hurricane. Kia Kroon, like you heard the name. The Black Fundraisers podcast, that's on everything.
Hello out there. It's your favorite fundraiser, Kia Kroon, the one and only, and your favorite podcast. Yes, I'm going to say that. Your favorite podcast, none other than the Black Fundraisers podcast. Today is what I consider to be one of those conversations that you might want to bookmark, that you might want to really do some soul searching around. If you are a fundraiser and you are considering embarking on launching your own consultancy, right? Maybe you've been mulling over it, musing over it, right? Or if you are building a consultancy and just would like some food for thought as you are building, because I am of the mind that it is important for us as fundraisers, specifically Black fundraisers, to really be tactical and methodical if we want to shift from an orientation of surviving to one of thriving. Today, I am joined by Makisha Booth. She is the founder of Sister Biz. Sister Biz.
Hello.
Sister Biz. I like that. Okay, I think that this is going to be good for y'all, good people out there. Welcome, Makisha. How are you, beautiful?
I'm good. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to jump in.
Me too. And I'm so glad that you and I saw fit to have this conversation. I know that you are coming to this conversation with a couple of things that I think are really, really important, with purpose and with lived experience. I'd love for you to take a moment and talk to the good people listening, the good people out there listening, about Sister Biz. Tell us a little bit about you and, how you working with the good sisters out there.
Yeah. So Sister Biz is an online learning community and a strategic planning hub for Black women entrepreneurs. And so you come to Sister Biz when you're ready to get serious about building a business that is going to become an asset, that's going to be a legacy, that is going to take care of you and free you up. And so we do that work through strategic planning, through teaching you how to know your numbers and to really create a dynamic plan for execution of business growth. And the way I got started was I got fired from a 6-figure job. This is now 11 years ago. I got fired from a 6-figure job and decided I was never going to work for anyone else again. And I had been in business prior to that.
Exactly. Ring close by for moments like that.
I love it. Exactly. That's exactly what was happening.
Sorry, I know I interrupted your train of thought. That was not my intention. I'm hoping we can get back on it. But I thought that was praiseworthy.
Yeah, it's important.
Never working for somebody again.
Yeah, I had decided that. And the reason I had decided that is because I felt like The way they terminated me, it was unfair. It was unexpected. And it made me feel like I was dispensable, even though to them, even though for me, I was pouring everything into them.
Mm.
And so I was like, no more, no more. The next time I pour everything I have into something, it's going to be to build for me. It's going to be to build for my generations ahead. It's going to be to build for my bloodline. So that's how I started my consulting agency. Within 6 months, I was at 6 figures and I grew it. And then I had a couple people come to me and say, I saw what you did. I saw how dirty they did you, girl. And then I saw how you built and you rose from the Phoenix ashes. And I need you to do the same thing for me because I'm experiencing racial trauma, workplace trauma, and I need to get out. And so I helped this one person, and it was a very heartfelt coffee. I'm thinking I'm just meeting for coffee to talk to somebody. She's in tears. I'm in tears. It's so much deeper than just her starting a business, you know? We get her off the ground, and then she sends friends, and then it spirals into 150 women, and then we're in 28 states. That's the quick and dirty on how it all happened.
I think that is a beautiful story, but can we just stop for a moment and talk about the tears and the coffee? Why it gotta be like that? Like, I get so tired of hearing about these experiences where there's been this pouring out, because how many people know, look, like I'm in my Southern Baptist preacher bag, and I am no preacher, but you know, as they say in the church, how many people know? How many people know that you can pour out and pour out and pour out and still be dispensable? You hit the nail on the head. And there's something about that feeling of being dispensable, despite the fact that your role has low-key become a part of your identity. Because
That's
here's
right.
what I know about Black women, Black men, and I'm even going to confer this upon people and communities of color that I have encountered that work in the nonprofit sector, right? And there's receipts. When you look at research from organizations like the Building Movement Project, this is an organization that conducts research on, you know, the state of nonprofit, the lived experience nonprofit professionals are having as it pertains to, you know, leadership development, fundraising, etc. Right? Their research, and I want to say that it was one of their studies, their Building Movement, their Race to Lead reports, right? I encourage you, and I'll even share the research, right? I'll share some links and you can kind of peruse the reports because they're really interesting data sets. I'm going to share that for anybody that's interested. What they found is that people of color in these spaces, we don't go into these spaces because it's the most honorable thing to do or the highest paid job on the block. We go into these roles in these spaces as a result of our lived experiences with systemic inequity.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in a construct of poverty. I fought my way out. I thugged, I outfoxed and fought my way out of that construct. And now that I can see clearly, I want to use my lived in experience to improve outcomes for somebody coming behind me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I have experienced, maybe I've experienced intimate partner violence. I now want to bring that lens of lived experience to my role as a fundraiser for a domestic violence organization. I could go on, right? When we think about cause areas and, you know, people's impetus and motivation for going into those spaces. But the data shows that our lived experience is an anchor. So I just want to witness you and acknowledge the fact that I'm of the belief that you had two women in this moment talking about something that was deeply painful to them because you brought that to the role. You weren't just operating as normal business, showing up and punching a clock. You were pouring.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's exactly what I think I see over and over again. Now you fast forward 10 years and we've coached thousands of women, thousands, thousands of Black women founders. And the story is just too common.
Yeah. Yeah, somebody commented, I'm not sure how this podcast popped up on my feed, but my God, this is exactly how I feel. Baby doll, well, you in the right place, mama. You are in the right place. And this episode is for you. And I'm a believer, and everybody who's connected to me or has experienced an opportunity to get to me knows that I am a very strong believer. And I'm going to be honest with you. I'm out here trusting God. Do I have strategies? Do I pour into my business? Yeah, I do. But it feels like a very safe place to pour. And that's what I want for people on the other side of this screen. And I would venture that that's what you want. So, thousands of women later, let's talk about a few nuggets that and considerations that people like Miss Ford here and others might want to consider as they look at their journey, where they are in their fundraising road. This is for fundraisers. If you watch these podcasts and they bless you, I bless God for that. But I want to talk specifically to fundraisers, specifically to Black fundraisers, about what are those considerations, right? Whether you're in it or whether you're thinking about it, right? And working towards building your consultancy. Because my good sis here, and I would be lying if we acted as though there isn't a risk, right? On the other side of thriving and trading an inheritance of thriving for one of merely surviving, yeah, it's going to cost you something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so
It's
as
going to
well.
cost you something.
Mm-hmm. So I think some nuggets, if you're thinking about going off on your own and starting your own venture, there's a few things I would recommend before you get started. The first is really make sure that that's what you want to do. And what I mean by that is there's a lot on social media right now, on the internet right now, promising that you can make $1 million in a week or 5 months, and they're showing their $1 million receipts, and they're showing all of the glam of entrepreneurship and none of the hard work. And so just know that because you're leaving the workplace does not mean you stop working. To build a business, it is a lot of work, probably way more work than you do working for an employer. The difference is no different than when you lease an apartment and when you pay mortgage. You're
Hello.
going to pay that rent. And at the end of the day, somebody else owns that house. When you own your home, you still have to pay your mortgage, but that's yours. And you can pass it on to your kids and you can pass it on to your family. So I just don't want people to think that there's this freedom that comes with it. That means you don't have to work. There is a freedom, but it's not what people think when they come into entrepreneurs. Sometimes they think that means, oh, I can just take a rest and not work. That's not how it works.
No,
So
it's not.
yeah, exactly. So if you come in and you know that you're going to be building something, it's going to take everything you poured into that employer, go ahead and pour it into your dream, into your legacy, into your business. And eventually, it's kind of like a child. You're going to raise that business up and it will free you up over time. And you will get your time back. You will buy your time back and you will create an asset that becomes something you can either sell or pass on and use to really fuel your retirement. But or your next venture, whatever you're going to do. But it starts with you knowing that I'm going to be building something. I'm going to be taking this expertise that I have that I'm using right now for someone else's dream and business, and I'm going to use it for myself. But it does mean I'm starting from scratch. It does mean the systems that they're using over there, I now have to build my own. The team culture that they're using over there, I now have to decide what that looks like for me and build my own. The capital that they are running on over there, I have to figure out my own capital strategy to fund the business. So you're going to be doing all the things to make sure that you have a full-fledged operation up and running. So if you're a great fundraiser, great, but that's just the product. You have to build the business around the product. Right now, you're working in a business right now for someone else. They built a business for you to be able to deliver their product in. Now you have to build your business to deliver your product in. So if you're ready for that journey, it's beautiful, it's amazing, it's high risk, it's all the things. It's uncomfortable, but it grows you. It grows you in so many ways, and then it comes back to feed you in the generations ahead of you if you stick with it, if you're committed, if you do it right. And so those are some of the things to start. I'll just start there because I know we
So you said a word. What I heard was that if you are considering embarking on this entrepreneurship journey, if you are saying maybe you feeling it in your womb, because look, Southern Black preacher bag, and I am no preacher, I'm just a believer. Sometimes there's just something in your womb. I believe that the womb and I'm talking about Black women, right? When I'm talking about this womb, a brother could have a strong inkling, and I support that and I rock with it. But there's something about women, Black women, whether you can birth a child or not. I'm talking about your womb, those things that you feel are part of your purpose. Like, there are people, I hope and pray that if you're watching on the other side of this, that you come into alignment with your purpose. Because if this is your purpose, yeah, it's going to cost you something. You were talking about some of those costs a moment ago, right? And I would say to you, embracing the construction process and knowing that you're going to build is the starting block, the foundation, right? And that's great. You think about this and you say, okay, I'm prepared and ready to ride this thing out and build and be a creative. I am a creative, right? I make tea, right? If you know me, oh, by the way, that brings me to our sponsorship moment. This episode is brought to you by a Tutu Apothecary. A Tutu Apothecary and Tea Room. Yes, and there's the website, right? And I want to lift up the fact that as a creative, as a person that curates and makes artisan tea blends, the same level of creativity that I put into my apothecary business is the same level of creativity that I put into my fundraising business. I'm creative. I'm creative when I'm thinking about those offers and those opportunities to grow my clientele. So as you were saying, thinking about what you're building and embracing that design, right? And thinking about what products you're going to build around the business, right? These are things that are important for us to consider, right? As we embrace that construction, right? Now, again, sis, we'd be remiss not to talk about the risk associated with that, right? When you really lean into, okay, I'm going to embrace this, right? I'm going to build. We got to know and be willing to calculate those risks, right? What's the risk? Yeah, your employer could get kind of cute. They could get cute. You know what I'm saying? And it could have implications for your job, You know, we've seen people getting bounced up out of jobs and fired from roles, being called a conflict of interest because they have a side business or an enterprise that's in their womb that they're trying to cultivate. Yeah, that could happen to you. That could happen to you. I think that for me, I had to ask myself, was the reward, the potential for the reward greater than the risk? And yeah, it was for me, right? Because like you, I knew that I was giving, and I knew that beyond what I was giving and pouring, I know, and I still know this, that I have a calling attached to what I do, right? As a fundraiser that is a social justice fundraiser for organizations across the globe. I know that I have a calling for that. And I knew that I had to answer the call for that particular work, right? But I had to calculate the risk. What was the risk? Yeah, my employer could get cute. You know, when I'm working full time and I'm cultivating my vision, my business on the side here, yeah, there is a possibility that my employer could view that as, you know, a conflict or something and could usher me out. For me, it was a risk that I was willing to take, right? And let's just be honest about that. Like, it is what it is, sis. But there are steps that we can take and should be taking to insulate us from that volatility in the event that the date that you want to jump off the porch, you know what I'm saying? Um, you know, your employer lets you go, you know, before you're ready to jump off the porch fully. You know what I'm saying? There's some things that we have to do, like make sure we have cash reserves. I call it FU money, right? In the event that I get let go, I know that I got a nest egg over here that I can pay my bills in the meantime while I'm looking for that anchoring client or that anchoring couple of clients, right?
Yeah.
What say you?
Yeah, I think that if you're talking about the risk of leaving your 9 to 5 and going to, build your own business, yeah, that is a risk, transitioning if there's any sort of mixture of the clients you're serving and the people and the stakeholders you work with at your job. I think I'm not an attorney, so I'm not going to tell anybody how to manage conflict of interest issues with their current employer. But here's what I will say. I think you're spot on when you're speaking to cash reserve. So making sure that if possible, you have some reserve to be able to put aside to get yourself through the building season of your business. I would say stay on your job as long as possible until the business is ready to go. Well, and I don't want to say as long as possible because then people start hanging on forever. So I don't want to say that. But set a freedom date. Set a date that you want to exit out and backwards map your business planning process from that date so that you can know that by this time, here are the things that need to be in order for me to leave this job. I need to have this many clients. I need to have my brand up in place. I need to know my offers and have my full business model built out. I need to have, a system in place for operating and sales and all the things. Like, you want to build out your kind of launch plan, your launch business plan within that timeline so that when you leave, you feel like I did everything I wanted to do with the job as a cushion. And now I can kind of move into a place where I can, fully do this full time. And yes, sometimes, especially from fundraising or consulting type businesses, it's that anchor client that will bring in a 6-figure or even a 5-figure amount of funds for you over time. If you have a contract that has a monthly retainer or something like that, that can help you get on your feet. What I will say is this, since we're talking about risk, there is a risk called key man risk. And
Okay.
key man risk is when you or someone in your job leaves and then the business can't run on its own because one of you left, you or your right hand man. If one person leaving cripples the business, or if anybody leaving cripples the business, that's called key man risk. So you want to be building systems so that your business can run when you go on vacation or if you get sick. There's also called client concentration risk. And what client concentration risk is, that one client, that anchor client that helped you leave your job. And so you're like, now I can work on my own. If that client leaves, or if like over 40% of your business comes from one client and them leaving cripples your business, that's client concentration risk. So you don't want to stay in that place where that anchor client is kind of what you're leaning on as sort of like a freelancer. You want to get to a place where you have a diverse portfolio of clients that if any one point of failure in your business happens, it's not going to cripple the business or kill the business. And that one client leaving isn't going to stop you from being able to run the business and take care of yourself. So it's a good starting point to have an anchor client, but you always want to figure out how to build out a client portfolio that is diverse. If you got some big clients, maybe you have a smaller offer that you have where you sell smaller memberships or retainers, but then you maybe have a couple of major clients so that you have different pots of revenue streams holding down the business. So those are some areas of risk that I think of when I think of entrepreneurship.
Right. So what I'm hearing, Makisha, and I agree with you, and thank you for the nomenclature that you shared regarding key man risk. And what was the other one?
Client concentration risk.
Client concentration risk. And here's a real thing, right? I'm super transparent. I don't embarrass easily. I'm grateful for that. You know, when you've been through some stuff and, you know, God has brought you on the other side of that, you learn to not be embarrassed by your scars, right?
Mm-hmm.
I got them. You know what I'm saying? I got them. And I'm not ashamed of them. I'm not ashamed to say, yeah, concentration risk is a real thing. You know, I've had a couple of really, really great clients and found that, and they were paying, you know, like I've had what I consider to be a lucrative financially solvent fundraising business. And yeah, there have been times when I got real comfortable with that clientele that I had, and I was not necessarily nurturing my portfolio for that diversity. You know, I wasn't really nurturing my funnel, or nurturing, you know, new business development. And you can find yourself in a precarious situation when that client is ready to roll off and you looking like, okay, what's next? You know, I need something else on this plate here, you know, to eat on. And it's not a laughing matter. So what I'm hearing, and I want to tie this together, is, you know, we go from embracing the process, right, of becoming an entrepreneur. Even if you're in it, even if you've started a consultancy and you're like, oh, yeah, this is work. You know, I don't know, because I said to myself, am I really good at this? You know, and then I had to fix my crown and remember who the hell I was.
That's
Yeah,
right.
you are good at this. You're excellent at this. It's just a couple of things that need to be fine tuned. And I'm, to be honest with you, is it safe for me to say, or do you agree? I think that this construction and building process is iterative.
Oh, absolutely.
Continue to
Absolutely.
refine. This is not a one and done, ladies and gentlemen watching this. This is iterative, but what we're saying is you really begin to embrace the possibility is the first step.
It is iterative. When you're building a business model, there's a ton of reasons why it's iterative, but one of the main, to explain how it looks iterative, is when you're building a business, you're going to start by looking at who is going to be your customer and what their needs are and what their pain points are and what's on their to-do list, and how can you give them an offer that takes stuff off their to-do list, that keeps them out of hot water, that makes their life easier, that helps them do their job better. So that takes time for you to really figure that out, because if you're not hitting those points, if you're not really hitting at those pain and gain points, you're not going to be able to really have people attracted to you. They only are attracted
Right.
if you're doing those things for them. So you have to do the research of that and build out your offer based on your client needs. Now, the reason I say it's iterative is because as you start to service clients, you learn more about them. So you go back and you say, oh, here's a pain point I didn't see. I need to adjust this offer to address that. Here's a aspiration all my clients have. I could totally help them get there and make more money with this offer. I can have this add-on. I can make this a maintenance offer that I add on to my offer in order to take this small thing off their to-do list. Like, there's so much you learn from working with your clients, and you want to be conscious and you want to document what you learn in those conversations. Every sales call, every onboarding call, every check-in call with your client is an opportunity for you to learn them more so that you can better serve them, so that you can tighten up your offers, so that you can increase your value, so you can make more money. So it's absolutely iterative. Now, over time, you get a foundation where you have a core offer that's pretty tightened up, but it usually comes after the iterations happen.
You've been working with it a little bit,
Yeah,
huh?
yeah,
And
yeah.
you feel and the other part of that, and this is really, really rich, Makisha, thank you for this. The other part of that is as you solidify that foundation, right? We're building. It's some stuff that you're gonna be like, I don't even really want to do this because this works.
Absolutely.
I don't want to offer that. Like, I'm gonna be honest with you. You know, I don't remember what I was doing. I said, "Oh shit, I don't want to do this." You know what I'm saying? Like I don't like this. This is making me like I'm gonna work, but this is making me work a little bit too hard. My edges is getting fried a little bit.
Now, speaking of, can I jump in here and talk about the culture a second for here? Just a little advice from my black business owners. Now, if you look at the legacy of our community in the country, it's built on us being laborers. Generation after generation, from slavery to, the work that we did in hospitality and in service, the only jobs they would give us. We've always been the frontline labor for this country. And here's what happens. You get used to that and you are in a laborer's mindset. And so when you start your business,
Lord, I just got freed.
when you start your business, you put yourself in labor mode. And so let me explain a little bit about what I think about that. I have some white male mentors of mine who have helped me grow my business over the years. And so I've watched them. And when these folks, when they get to the table and they have their little napkin and they drawing out ideas, they say, I have an idea. And then they say, who's going to build this for me? Who's going to run this for me? When we have an idea, we say, I have an idea. I got to go to the store. I got to get the supplies. I got to get on. Like, we immediately position ourselves in our own business as the front line instead of building something that, of course, you might have to start it on the front line in the beginning to build it out. But you should start with the vision of how is this thing a machine that I'm building that's going to run without me, and what does that model look like? And I can work towards that. We don't see that enough. We don't see us starting with that vision. We see us starting with, I'm gonna get all the things, I'm gonna do everything myself, because if I don't do it myself, nobody's gonna do it right. I don't have the money to hire any. We don't even go into the mindset of dreaming big, of building big, of envisioning a business that runs without us. And so from that comes burnout. So you take on your client. You tell them you can do the rooter to the tutor, because that's the other thing we do.
Not the rooter to the tutor. You sure right.
We give them everything. And then we undercharge. We don't even calculate our costs and realize that our time, our expertise, our information, and our labor is being undersold.
Your brain trust.
To get the client. We're just trying to get
brain trust. Because, baby, let me tell you something. If you come and work with Kia Kroom Fundraising and Philanthropy, you're going to walk away with so much more than fundraising tactics and strategies. Baby, I could talk to you about some stuff that can create a whole nother revenue revenue stream for your organization that you may or may not be interested. It may be something that you put on a shelf for one day. It may be the thing that you like, shoot, we need to do. Yes, 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 and yes. And it's effortless because you got 26 years of brain trust right here. I'm going into my 26th year.
But
You
you
can't
charge
pay for that.
But you see our women, our entrepreneurs, our Black entrepreneurs charging for the time it took you to draw up the proposal. I don't want you to charge for the 5 hours it took you to build the proposal. I want you to charge for the 26 years of experience that built a better proposal than if you did it yourself, and gets better results than if you did it yourself. So charging for time, that's really key, especially for fundraisers. We're really key. If you're a great fundraiser, don't charge for time. You've got to look at the value. What is the customer or the client going to get from it? How much expertise are you bringing to the table? Because when you bring expertise to the table, you do things in a way where you skip problems that other people might run into. You take less time to do things that they might take to do. You have an insight and a way to do things that's better than other people, and so you get a better job done faster with better results. That's what you're charging for. And so
absolutely, you preaching, you on fire. You on fire, mama. So I want to put this, because I'm going to try to get the people the steps as we go along. So building, right? Calculating the risk, setting that freedom date, right? And fully informed in terms of that freedom date, what we need to have, in our coffers, or, in our pocketbook, in the words of, my country grammar, you make sure that the pocketbook is, such that you can keep doing what you got to do. I would add to this list that we've created here, right? I think that it's important to really lean into and be comfortable with refining what is your niche, right? I figured out what my niche is, right? And I'm very matter of fact about it. I'm concerned about social justice. I'm concerned about human lives. Do I think that animal welfare is very, very important and a worthy cause? Yes, I do. It's just not the cause that I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about human welfare, particularly the health and well-being and resource deployment to historically minoritized racial and social groups, right? That's my niche. So I don't feel like I need to hang out in the animal welfare space. I don't feel like, there are some spaces that I don't feel really tickle my fancy. And rather than me taking up space and trying to make something shake in that space because I can, I'm going to rock with what my niche is and where my passion lies. And that is, I think, my value proposition. That's my edge that I bring to this work.
Yeah. So niche is really, really important, much more important for the small boutique business than it is for the larger monster companies. Walmart can afford to serve everybody.
Right.
And so it's really important to figure out what your lane is so that people know that you're talking to them. And so I always use the example of, I tell my client when I'm talking, my clients are doing trainings, I always say, if I seriously put your mindset in the mind that I'm about to give you $1 million for getting this right. If I say I'm gonna give you $1 million and all I need you to do is I need you to go be the first person to, find, 3 goldfish. I'm gonna give you a fishing pole. I'm gonna give you everything you need, and you just got to find 3 goldfish. You have a choice between 2 places I'm going to send you to get this goldfish. And if you get it, I'm going to give you $1 million. I'm going to send you out to the middle of the ocean where everything lives, every creature in the sea. And then I'm going to send you to a small pond of goldfish, a goldfish pond. You want this $1 million. So where are you going to go to get these fish? You're going to go to the small pond because it's nothing in there but goldfish. And you know you're going to get goldfish. And they're all circulating there. And it's going to be easier to find your goldfish. You go to the ocean, you're going to be pulling up bikes and crab and maybe run into a shark, and all the things are in the ocean. But when you go to the goldfish pond, you find the goldfish. And so you have to label what your niche is so that you can then find where that population exists and market to that population. The other thing you think about in this analogy is when you're trying to fish for certain clients, it's different bait. Certain people need different messages and different offers and different things than others. And so when you know what market you're marketing to, you can tailor your message. You can create the bait in your marketing so that you can attract that specific goldfish. You don't want crabs, so you're not going to put certain things on your hook. And so when you niche, it allows you to narrow in on who you're trying to attract with the message that you want to attract that will attract them, versus speaking to a broader audience and pulling in everything, including the clients you don't want. And you want to make sure you're bringing in high value clients, not just anybody who will pay.
Exactly. And I've been guilty of, making some mistakes there in that fine tuning, right? Um, this is really, really a rich conversation. And I really, really hope and pray that somebody on the other side of this is really, really enriched in their journey. Um, Here's what I want to share, what I've taken away from, our convergence of thoughts and ideas here. Number one, embrace the building process. Consultants, aspiring ones, right? And know that it's iterative. When you set your sight and your heart and mind on being an entrepreneur and building, right, and pouring into something that you own, where you have creative authority. Um, Makisha, you were very deliberate about pointing out how, as you're in this phase and you get comfortable here, I think that we should underscore the importance of, considering what you want to do. Like, I don't necessarily want to have the biggest fundraising consultancy, because for me, it's more important for me to make money, and I want to stop trading time for money. I want to be able to live and smell the roses. Do I want to have a lucrative business? Yes. But I also want to be able to be present for moments in life. You know what I'm saying? I want to be able to smell the roses a little bit. I want to be kinder to myself because I'm a sandwich generation professional who's taking care of my mother, who is living with comorbidities, mental and physical maladies in the body. You understand what I'm saying? I need to be able to show up for her. So I got to be mindful of what I'm building and maintain that balance of, being able to show up for the people that are important to me and that need me, but also to show up for myself. So those are things that I think that we need to be mindful of. Number two, calculating those risks. Yeah, your employer could get cute. Yeah, you might be codifying your freedom date, right? Which we'll get to in a moment. There's a possibility because jobs are a wild card. We don't have any ownership there. So decisions could be made that we weren't necessarily ready for. And that's a real thing. There are risks. But I'm of the mind, and you're of the mind, Makisha, that the reward outweighs the risk. Sis, I heard you when you said define your lane, your niche, right? Your value proposition. And being comfortable leaning into that and not feeling that you need to try to be somebody else, because again, it don't cost anything to be a carbon copy of somebody else. When you're putting, your feet to the fire, and you're really producing something, and you know who you are, and you know your value, you's a bad mother sucker. You's a bad mother sucker. We talked about the importance of obtaining those anchoring clients, but also attending to your business development funnel. Don't get so comfortable like me that you invoicing people and you banking, bankrolling, and then when somebody, you like, oh snap, okay, who gonna replace that revenue? Because they decided to hire somebody internally to deal with their fundraising and resource development program. It ain't because I didn't do a good job. It's because that's what's in their future, is hiring somebody full time, because I ain't gonna be in your office every day. Not doing that, and that's the direction they want to go. They're within their reason as my client to move on and make a decision in the best interest of their business. I better have my funnel popping, right? And you talked about this freedom date, right? And setting a goal to make the transition from your job, if you're in a job, to your firm, right? And building that out. I think that we've given the good people listening some real good nuggets to consider. And I think that it's safe to say, let's put a pin in this, because I see some opportunities to really bring some value to the good people listening, right? To operationalize some of this. And those are things that I look forward to ideating on with this good sister here and bringing to the marketplace for those of you who were blessed by this. I want to thank you for coming by and doing this with me. This has not only been enriching for the audience, but it's been a good, put a little bit of zest in my morning this morning, some pep in my step.
Thank you for having me. It was a good discussion. I am encouraged to know that, like, we are now, as Black women, we're the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs in the country. And so we're starting to see, like, we can build our own. And so anything that Sister Biz can do to make sure that we're building legacy and ownership in our families and in our communities is key.
How do the good people listening catch up with you?
I am at www.sista.biz, and that's SISTAH.biz. And you can log into our platform and access all of the coursework, work groups, and materials you need to to work on your freedom plan and your freedom date.
I love that. So more to come, good people. Makisha, hang tight with me as we close out, because I want to have a word with you, sis. Thank you, good people out there. Look for the show notes. We're going to pull these steps out of here, and I'm going to share those data points, those resources for anybody that might be interested. I mentioned the Race to Lead surveys, which are a product of the Building Movement Project. If you're like me, you're a data junkie. I love a good receipt. So I'm happy to talk with you. And just like that, folks, we are out of here. Hang tight with me.
You in a position very few people have been in. Now we on the money mission. If they didn't listen, then they didn't have the vision. Cool, we on the money mission. Get your money up, money up, money up, money up, money up. Get your money up, money up, money up, money up, money up. Get your money up, money up, money up, money up, money up. Get your